like I think the balance of players between Matt, Dustin, and Stu is something that I and I'm not saying this with like an intention of like my previous band didn't have it, but it's something that I really enjoy, the balance of, like, for example, Stu likes to have very specific things in terms of how are we going to do these, like are we going to crescendo here, are we going to play this soft, like
Mm,
very to the detail, which I know he from his personality,
mm,
and I love it.
mm,
Matt sometimes will prefer not to give him too much information. He's like too much, like sometimes it's like, okay, I said too much, or like, because it allows him to still be into that kind of like what's going to happen, and like even though you wrote something like, or sometimes I don't write something very specific, like I give him slashes, and sometimes he'll ask me a question, what are you thinking in the groove here, and I'll sing a rhythm, and it's like, okay, that's enough. But I don't want to write too much for him,
mm,
because I actually like sometimes that if I write it, he's going to play it, but if I don't write it, then he comes with something that maybe I wasn't expecting,
mm, mm.
right? So I think
Yeah.
they are like, well, they're both amazing players. Like Matt, very different, and Stu in terms of how to approach music. Uh, and it's good. It works good together because they're also like both musical and good friends. And
Yeah.
Dustin is kind of just like my sniper, man. Like he's like I don't tell him much. I don't tell. I mean, if you see my sax charts, like I almost don't write dynamics
Uh,
with the intention that, like, at the beginning it used to be more of a mistake. Oh, I forgot to write dynamics. But at some point it was like more like, let me not write it, and what, especially when we were gonna rehearse, let me
mm,
see what he does,
mm.
because sometimes he'll approach something like, oh yeah, he played in this way, and then we play it again and he played it differently because he has a good ear in terms of like, oh, they're doing this like this, I'm gonna do
Yeah.
it like that, like.
Yeah.
And his rhythm is just like, oof, Dustin rhythm is just like
Yeah.
amazing. Like he's
Yeah.
really good at not like being like perfect, but be able to be like, if we are moving a little bit, because sometimes I rush, sometimes
Mm.
like he will be able to stay with us and like hold things down, right? Like,
Yeah.
and like I just love his soloing. I mean, my this album has a lot of terror solos. I'm sure you can tell.
Section. I'll have to look at it more, but there's a section where there's a kind of arpeggiated figure that comes in.
Oh yeah, that's all written.
And that's all written. That sounded like it
Yeah,
because like the bottom note is connecting up with the bass line that like Matt is
yeah,
up at
that's
that
that's
point.
like letter F, I think, on the chart. I'm looking at the chart right now.
That was pretty
So yeah,
awesome. And then,
yeah. I
but there's more
main
stuff. I can't remember if he's doing that with his left hand, and then I think maybe his right hand crosses and does some like lower stuff and things,
Yeah,
you
so
know?
when I wrote that, I was influenced. I have to say, there's like a lot of my influences in terms of modern jazz have came from like, I don't know, like Tigran, Shy Maestro, people that I like,
Ah,
a lot of piano players that I really like that kind of do modern jazz in the sense
yeah.
where they combine elements of their culture and the sound of their music,
Yep.
and within like this kind of new piece of work that doesn't really resembles like what you will think about like jazz as like 1960s 1950s music, but
Hmm.
it has the elements of improvisation, has the elements of development of motives and rhythm. And so um I remember I was like, I kind of pushed myself like, hey, I want to write this melody, and I kind of like reharmonize it a little bit, not too much, but I start working on this ostinato, and my idea with Stu's role or the piano role was like he was gonna create that kind of vibe and like his melody, because this is a lot. It came a lot from the idea of listening to Shy Maestro, like Jorge Rueder, who is Shy's bass player.
Amazing. Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine.
Is he? Oh, I
So
think
yeah, he actually recorded my first album. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't
Yeah,
realize that, but this is ringing a bell because I think you must have been at the Shy concert that I was at, maybe, and we got to chatting about this with James
probably.
coming
Yeah.
back to me. Yeah.
So Jorge's a good friend. So I remember
Mm,
like asking very specific things and like about playing in that trio,
mm.
and like he would show me like rehearsal, like, man, I'm working on this thing, and he's like, Shy wrote this crazy line on the bass, but the line will make that sometimes in the bass will support like the arpeggio that Shy will do. Sometimes the arpeggio will have like the melody in within it, so it's kind of like a very pianistic thing where like they're
Yeah.
playing this arpeggio, but there's one note that's just a little louder,
Hmm. Hmm.
sometimes in the tenor voice, sometimes in the bass voice,
Yeah.
sometimes in the soprano voice. So my idea came from that, like, oh, I want that arpeggio kind of have the melody in within it that accompanies the bass,
Yeah.
but sometimes the tenor who is actually playing the main melody
Yeah.
support that in the lower register.
Yeah.
So I was kind of all over the place. And
So cool.
when I wrote it, of course, I imagine how maybe some, like, I play a little piano, so I just think things that are possible. Like, I cannot play it, but I think this is possible. Like, I
Yeah.
put my hand on the piano, it's like, yeah, he could do something like this. And of course, I never think about like him doing crossing. Sometimes I think about like, oh, it's possible if you this hand keeps this.
Yeah.
But of course, he thinks more in that melodic sense. Oh, this I want to keep this voice here, so it's better for me to do a cross here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So all that piano technicalities, of course, he worked it out,
He works
but
out.
it's written there.
So yeah, and then memory. So anyways, I see Stu's piece is sort of a transitional thing, and then Memorias really sort of gets into a very different emotional space. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's this, this gorgeous Venezuelan.
Luna, Luna Llena. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I'm assuming this is sort of an intentional thing, but I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about just these kind of, I don't know, just in the emotional qualities of the music. We've been talking some about the technical, side of it.
Sure. So I something that I always think about is like a record is like a piece of art, right? It should kind of like any art that you experience, it has a process. It's not that you see something like, even like I myself go to the art institute look at the painting. Sometimes I used to be like, okay, I see it, I move on. But if you really want to dig on into it, it takes time. It takes like, okay, I have to like allow myself to go through that process of experience things, right? So all my records have that in terms of like arrival points, in terms of things that have to feel or like give you a little bit of a trip to the listener, right?
Yeah.
So Memorias, this album, as it pays tribute to my grandma, like the reason of those songs being placed in the way they are, it kind of brings like the way I perceive her personality, like as Celinda being like very joyful, even a little like the main theme is ta 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 ta. It's very like wordy, because I imagine sometimes my grandma coming to my room be like, "Hey, you have to do the," and it just kind of keeps talking. But at the same
Nice.
time, the harmony evokes this kind of like pretty, like a little elegant, right? Because a grandma visit comes, she's very elegant.
Mm.
Visit goes away, she's like swearing and telling everybody what to do, right? So kind of evokes a little bit. And Terluma is definitely a composition that's too broad, so I don't have full control of what he thought. But the
Yeah.
reason I put it there is because it kind of gives you a little more of like, now that things have been said, uh, kind of like the groove of the daily, like what it feels. I felt like that song had a lot of that kind of groovy. Definitely going to the third track, Memorias, which is a little more. And this is something very interesting. When I asked my grandma this specific question, I had a plan of maybe putting some of her words in within the record.
Hmm.
I asked my nephew who lives in Peru, "Hey, would you mind putting your phone and record my grandma answering the following questions?"
Mm.
And I remember asking her, if you have to tell me what's your first memory, because she's 95,
Mm.
what would that be? I was
Mm.
kind of curious. And the first thing that she said was the loss of her sister when she was just a kid.
Mm.
She had a younger sister. My grandma was about 8 years when her younger sister was 6, passed away. So her earliest memory is like a sad memory,
Mm.
right? Like it's this like kind of really, and so that brought to me a lot of inspiration in terms of like the deepness of sometimes who we are shape in terms of the experiences that we go through, and we live through those experiences by remembering. Every time that you think about that person, you don't think about every single thing of that person done, but you think about what are those kind of like landmark moments in within your life that have had specific impact, right? So I thought that the vibe of Memorias of that song had a little bit of a darker color because of many times those kind of traumatic or like early things that happen in our life have really carved our shape, right? To be right, not to be too dark, but to understand that there's a deepness in within every human that we don't really see it unless we do ask. Many times people hide those things, right?
Sure.
So that's kind of where we went. Like Tonada y Luna kind of goes along with like, I thought that was the perfect time to like kind of just settle things down, right? And to
Hmm.
bring it again to joy, which was a human touch, right? Like
Yeah.
the song that Matt brought. That
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you know, but Matt plays that song with his group as well. We definitely have a different approach.
Oh, I
When
didn't know that.
I think he brought it first for Chinchano. He told me he was looking into like música from the Andes with like this. I'll have to send you a clip of the. It's called danza de tijeras, which is scissors,
Huh.
which is this dance that they dance with big scissors. It's for like the feel,
Really?
and they make this like really crazy noise and rhythm.
Huh.
So he was influenced by those melodies are also seven measure phrases, and he was
Yeah.
inspired by that.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, since when he told me that, I was like, oh, I might approach my playing in this way, and we got it closer to the why note. To finishing out with Que Frio, which is like that song, kind of like really uplifting, very rhythmic, more of a party. My grandma always was a host. She is a host. Like people come in, like we always have a big party in the house. Everybody is joyful, right? So
Yeah.
kind of those two last songs kind of represent that a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you so
All right,
much,
man.
Juan, for making the time. This was beautiful. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.